Good afternoon, dear colleagues and guests. Please allow me to consider open the meeting of the Dissertation Council for the defense of Kukanov Andreevich for the candidate degree on specialty 190010 correctional psychology on the topic characteristics of value-motivational sphere of the parents of children with various deviations in the development. According to the order of St. Petersburg State University from the 3rd of April, me, Posachova Tlana Timofeevna, was appointed the chairman of this dissertational council, and also allow me to introduce my fellow board members. Doctor of Psychology of Preparation of St. Petersburg State University, Malkova Elena Evgenievna, Doctor of Psychology, Professor of the Department of Clinical Psychology and Psychological Assistance of Russian Hetson's University, Matanova Koneva Vanya Lukova, Doctor of Psychology, the University of Sofia, and Kostin Igor Anatolievich is working in the remote mode, Doctor of Psychology, the Institute of Correctional Pedagogy, Russian Academy of Education. And first I would like to emphasize that according to the federal law of the 23rd of August 1996, number 127, on science and the state scientific and technical policy, St. Petersburg State University has the right to independently award academic degrees. The corresponding order on the procedure for awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg State University, on the basis of which we conduct our meeting of the Council, was issued on the 1st of September 2016. In accordance with this order, the meeting of the Dissertation Council is considered eligible if at least 2/3 of the approved membership of the Dissertational Council takes part in its work, but not less than 4 persons. There are 5 members of the Council and all of them are present. The procedure of today's meeting of the Dissertation Board, with a total duration of no more than 2 hours, is the following: the chairman's summary report on the main content of the documents, brief report of the candidate for the degree reflecting the main points of his research, questions to the candidate strictly according to his report, the speech of the chairman with his reviews, the answers of the candidate for the degree to the questions and remarks of the members of the Dissertation Council, open discussion, speeches at the request of those present at the defense of the thesis of persons with a brief presentation of their positions, and or specific questions and proposals to the candidate strictly on the topic of the research. At the same time, all interested persons are requested to register in the registration sheet and before submitting their speech fully introduce themselves. Final answers of the applicant to the questions asked, the speech of the scientific supervisor, and open individual voting, counting of votes by the chairman of the Dissertational Council with entering the results in the minutes of the meeting. Decision on awarding or not awarding the academic degree of St. Petersburg State University. The final word of the applicant. Before switching to the realization of the meeting's rules of the procedure, I remind you to switch off your mobile phones. Thank you for your attention. I also inform you that an audio and video recording of our meeting is being conducted, as well as a live broadcast on the website of St. Petersburg State University, and simultaneous interpretation of speeches from Russian into English or from Russian into English is also provided. Chairman's summary report: the dissertation of Kukanov Andrej Andreevich for the candidate degree of psychology on specialty 190010 on the topic characteristics of value-motivational sphere of the parents of children with various deviations in the development, was accepted for the defense by the order of the scientific secretary from the 3rd of April 2019, and I have already introduced the members of the Dissertational Council to you. The candidate submitted the following documents to the Scientific Secretary of St. Petersburg State University: an application form addressed to the rector of St. Petersburg State University, candidate's diploma issued by Moscow State University about the qualification clinical psychologist. The thesis is done in Russian and English, both in paper-based version as a manuscript in the electronic form. The thesis is designed in accordance with the requirements of national state standard, and the thesis is printed on a multiplier with the indication of the output data in accordance with national state standard. If you have any questions concerning the documents, no questions. Dear Andreevich, you have got 15 minutes for this speech, reflecting the main content of the dissertation. Good afternoon, distinguished members of the Dissertational Council, colleagues and guests. I would like to introduce to you my thesis on the specialty 190010 correctional psychology, on the topic characteristics of value-motivational sphere of the parents of children with various deviations in the development. Over the recent years, children demonstrate troubles, and their birth is very difficult and unexpected event in the life of his parents. And the family from the main resource is converted into the main stressor. In connection to that, the main direction of correctional psychology is the development of special programs to help such parents. A comparative analysis of specific peculiarities of value-motivational sphere of the mothers of children with deviations, and the review and analysis of this research, the testing of methods necessary for empirical research, the study of cognitive directions, the study of personality of the mothers, and comparative analysis of the results of the research. The main hypothesis of the research is that parents of children with such deviations have specific peculiarities in the value-motivational sphere. Hypothesis 2, the mothers of such children have specific peculiarities. Hypothesis 3, the indicator of the values and availability, which points out to the extent of discontent with the life, is higher at mothers in experimental groups rather than in control group. The novelty of the research is that for the first time in the Russian psychology, the empirical basis was obtained, which allowed to study such categories as personality conflicts and values at mothers of children with deviations. And the theoretical significance is that these results of empirical research make its contribution into the development of family psychology and psychotherapy, special correctional psychology, and a new direction in clinical psychology of the family. And practical significance of this study is that the data can be used in consulting and provisions for the defense. The process of decision-making of such parents is of staged character, and the change of such categories as internal conflicts, and all mothers have the same views to the family life, and it does not depend on the health of their child. And the implementation of psychology correctional program is aimed at the consulting and psychological assistance to the mothers who bring up children with deviations. And the object of the research, it is value-motivational sphere of life, and the subject of the research, specific peculiarities of value relief. And 3 groups of tested people took part in the research: control group, experimental group, and mothers of children with delayed psychological development. And all the mothers should have been biological mothers of their children, be married to the father of such children. Empirical research was conducted on the basis of the kindergarten in Domodedovo, Moscow region in 2014-2016. To realize this hypothesis, a complex of methods was used. Seven states and the free choice of these values, and the Schwartz methodology, and we also chose non-parameter criteria of Mann-Whitney. To analyze these results, we decided to divide these methods into 2 blocks: value-motivational and emotion, personal and discomfort scale. The first block, the mothers of children with autism, such values as sincerity, belief in God, independence are of high importance. Internal vacuum was also observed, and optimism, belief in God, independence, and hedonism is of low importance. There is a trend, and there was no internal vacuum. And sincerity is of high importance, and index indicators availability corresponds to the middle level of disintegration. In connection to this, we may assume that the mothers of such children with deviations don't want to change the life, and the first aspect, verbalization. Number 2, protection. Number 3, non-participation of a husband, discontent with the role of a housewife, and dominance of the mother. Excessive protection, irritation, suppression of aggression and the domination of the mother. On the whole, all mothers are satisfied with their family role, and the most significance is the value of the contact with a child. It can point out to the fact that all the mothers accept their child or on the cognitive level. And as for emotional block, mothers and the participants of the groups of the second group, as for results of the statistical analysis, the presence of the anxiety, apatheia, and the lack of the comfort. As for the statistical analysis, we could not, and the difference between the indicators of anxiety, comfort in both experimental groups. As for the analysis of the minimal methodology in profile, we can see hysteria. We can assume that for mothers bringing up children with autism and for mothers bringing up children with other deviations, slow development, for example, we found out that the difference and we could not find differences. The next stage of our analysis was correlational analysis. The slide shows the most interesting correlations in these groups according to psychological indicators, and page 19 and 26 show of the thesis show more information about it. Anxiety, external vacuum, and apatheia are represented, and considerable correlation is also shown. Thus, we found out specific peculiarities and the similar things were the increased level of psychological discomfort, dissociation between some life needs and opportunities of content, and all this peculiarity became the targets of our analysis. And we developed a special correction program which is called Family, and it is aimed at the assistance to the families who bring up children with deviations. Whereas consulting of such families and correction of dysfunctional situation, psychological correction of psychological state of the mothers, which is connected with the birth and future growth of such children with deviation, and assistance in the life. Correctional work consists of two parts. The first part is theoretical and includes psychodiagnosis of the emotional state of the mothers, specific peculiarities of such children and forming of theoretical basis. The second part is practical. It consists of 8 group trainings aimed as correction of psycho-emotional state of the participants of the group. And another part is individual work, and each participant of the group can have the consultation with a psychologist. And the stages of the realization of this program, the first one is consulting and diagnostical stage. After the written agreement, a woman receives a special scale aimed at the revealing of emotional state. The second stage, introductory stage, to theoretical consultations. In the course of consulting, the participants can ask questions and take part in group discussions. After the summing up, the topic of future consultations is announced. The second stage, the main stage of this program, is aimed at the correction of negative psycho-emotional state of the members of the program. Please turn to the conclusions. You're pressed for time. Please, conclusions. Conclusions. Parents of the children with deviations show general and specific peculiarities in the value-motivational sphere in the conditions of current distorted development of their child. And as for indicators of value and availability, such mothers are dissatisfied with the current life. Number 5, between the indicators of the status of family bringing up in experimental groups, there are no distinctions. And specific peculiarities, they are the following: increased level of psychological discomfort, dissociation between their needs and opportunities, and combination in practical life of art therapeutic technologies with the methods of cognitive therapy help decrease negative emotions. And this program, which is called 7 Eyes, became effective. Thank you very much for your attention. Dear colleagues, do you have any questions? If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. As for the content of this speech, when you described the value block and you spoke about the Paris methods and which is the level of the let me show this slide to you. I could not find there. And can you specify the truthfulness of the distinction? If we study the methods. In the first aspect, verbalization, it is 0.05, and strictness, it is 0.1, and lack of attention of the father, it is 0.1. The role of the housewife, the same figure, 0.5, and the dominance of the mother, it is also 0.5. Family conflict, 0.5. Irritation, 0.5, and suppression of aggression is also 0.5. We can conclude that this method is very informative. The next question, you divided all these results into two blocks, value and emotional, and they are not reflected either in the provisions for the defense or in the tasks of your thesis. And we also study personality aspect. It would be very interesting for the general results. Thank you very much. I will take it into account in my further research. One more question concerning the practical part about the implementation of your program. Provision 5 for the defense reflects the fact that it is psycho-correctional program, and it deals with mothers in particular. You helped mothers, and you see that this sphere is very acute, and please specify what you corrected, which drawbacks you found out, and what is the focus of your attention. We tried to correct psycho-emotional state of the family. It was the condition of psychological discomfort, the development of new life orienting points in the process of psycho-correctional process. Andreevich, and on page 29 of handouts, such practical tasks, how are they connected with the correction of social sphere of the mothers? It is metaphorical imagination of their world, the development of the resources which parents create for themselves. And my goddess, it is a very interesting method. The association of a person with the mother of one ancient Greek goddess. It is a metaphorical map. Oksana Vladimirovna, thank you very much for the questions. Any other questions? And now let's discuss the reviews There are no external reviews submitted. Let us discuss Oksana Vladimirovna, please, your review. The thesis of Andreevich Kukanov is very actual and devoted to the study of personality traits, and the topic of the thesis is characteristics of value-motivational sphere of the parents of children with various deviations in the development. The actuality of the topic is that such children with deviation, it is great trouble for the parents, and psychologists should help such parents. It's very important for the satisfaction of needs both of the children and parents. Such parents live in constant stress. They have personality clashes, personality conflict, and the study of these family values, this allows to analyze the change of personality. In practical respect, the study helps to solve many problems with the help of constructive and scientific methods. It allows to preserve the family and support psychological state of mothers and fathers in such children. And in connection to that, the thesis is very interesting and it is very actual. The aim of the research was in comparative analysis of the mothers who bring up children with deviations, the mothers of normal children, and the author analyzed the problems of psychic problems of the mothers, and he conducted empirical research, psychodiagnostical research. He developed a special program and he chose adequate methodological apparatus, and he achieved the aims of this study. The personal contribution of the candidate is the analysis of the motivational sphere of the mothers, the development of the psycho-correctional program for such mothers, the use of empirical data, non-parametric criteria of Mann-Whitney, and correctional analysis of Sperman, and it provides the truthful results. 150 parents and children were chosen. They were divided into 3 groups: control group, early children autism, and it allowed to conduct comparative analysis, the influence of pathology on the interaction process, and the diagnostics of existence category was conducted, and it reflects the process of transformation of value and motivational sphere, and similar views were revealed, and detailed qualitative and quantitative analysis was conducted. On the basis of these results, the author managed to make logical conclusions. and also it reflects scientific novelty. The scientific novelty of the research is that in Russian psychology, our candidate proved great results, and it allowed to test the program which was aimed at consulting assistance. And the theoretical significance of the research is that the results makes it focuses on the main content of the research. The structure of the thesis is completed, qualified work. It consists of no voice in the microphone, 55 in foreign language, and 9 applications, appendices. In 4 of them are placed in peer-reviewed journals. On the whole, the thesis is a completed research. It produces bright positive impression. It is done at the high scientific level. The author formulated conclusions of scientific significance, but there are some drawbacks concerning the content of the work. The author speaks that there are 5 stages and refers to 8 sources of Garachev, Sontsev, Ruslov, Seligman, and at the same time, in the introduction, the first provision for the defense, the process of the understanding of such children by their parents have staged character. But what is your own contribution? And where is the novelty? Number 2, remark 2, page 40, about the role of specialists, we, doctors, psychologists, and teachers should become their assistants, and we should help them every time. There are some stylistical drawbacks. Please take them into account. Question: why, as the basis for the research, you chose mothers of autists? But there are a lot of deviations. Apart from autism and deviation, delay in the development. The second, the theoretical, and number 3, Andreevich speaks about the delay of psychic development, psychological development, and he gives the examples of the USA, and but these remarks does not decrease the overall positive impression from the work, and his results can be put into practice. And conclusion, the thesis of Kukanov, Andreevich, on the topic characteristics of value-motivational sphere of the parents of children with various deviations in the development conforms with the requirements of the order on the procedure of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg State University, and our candidate deserves the degree on specialty 9000, 10 correctional psychology, and point 1 of the order was not violated by Andrej Andreevich. Andrej Andreevich, please answer the questions. As for the first question about the mothers of children with autism and the delay of psychic development, it is professional interests. For many years we have been working with children with such deviations. Secondly, such deviations are more widespread. Many little patients have autism or delay in the psychological development, and such social categories and we found out that such women with children with deviations, such mothers, they are changing. The provision about this subject, attitude of such people are formed under the influence of the society. The second provision, they become pathogenetic when they become central in the system of troubles, psychotrauma conditions, the emotional and intellectual content. And number 4, the change of the relations can be very slow under the influence of this situation with extraordinary character. Number 3, statistical data concerning autism and the delay of psychic development. We looked for the data about Russia, but unfortunately we could not find them. To some extent, we can be based on the letter from the Ministry of Health of the Russian Federation from the 8th of May 2013. 1% of children in Russia has autism. Since 2013, the foundation of the assistance for the parents with autist children, they conduct joint research to find out the data, and this data unfortunately not all the data can be too concrete, because there are huge differences between what happens in the reality. If we take Moscow information, 1% of children less than 1% with autism. And we don't have precise statistical data, and here we can't speak that we can operate such figures. Thank you. Do you like the answer? The next review, the speech of Malkova Yelena Evgenievna. Thank you very much. The actuality of the topic of the research is defined by the necessity of the development new correctional programs aimed at the psychological assistance to the parents with children with autism. The peculiarity of the study is the fact that in this research, the aspect of the change of external determinants under the influence of long-term crisis situation, and it defines actuality and novelty of the research. The aim of the dissertation is to study specific peculiarities of the emotional sphere of parents, especially mothers who bring up children with autism and delay of psychic development. The main hypothesis of the research, the aim of the research, realizing the role of external aspects of the personality during the process of decision making, was formulated correctly. The task of the research is focused at the conflict of the personality of the parents. Also, the development and testing of the no voice in the microphone. And it corresponds the aim. The author used the complex of standard psychodiagnostic methods. The provisions for the defense and conclusions are explained. No voice in the microphone. It is proved by the white volume. 150 persons were tested. Mathematical and statistical data was used, and it corresponds with the object, subject, and task of the research. The number of the tested people corresponds with the direction of the research. The combination of diagnostical and statistical methods helped to solve the tasks of the research. The results of empirical research opens new opportunities. The values and orienting at personality conflicts. In the theoretical aspects, the data, research data, can supplement medical psychology. The results of the research prove the necessity of psychological assistance, practical aspect, the results of empirical data, and developed psychocorrectional program which can be used in studying process for the psychological help of the parents, and many other doctors who provide this consulting. The structure of the work corresponds with the aims: introduction, theoretical part, practical part, including the description of the set of tools with the analysis of the results, correctional chapter, which outlines and explains the psycho-correction program. The structure of the work includes all the necessary parts, and it allowed to our author to meet the tasks of the thesis. Task 2, organizational part, the selection of the methods for the research. Task 7, the development of the special program of the help to mothers of such children with deviations. It is not the task of approbation. Chapter 1 analyzes this literature data connected with the analysis of clinical and psychological characteristics, the psychological peculiarities of children and mothers, medical and psychological aspects of the changes and personality values with deviations in the development. And the author concludes that under the influence of the fact when a sick child is being born, this situation affects all the members of the family. It changes the psychological state. And the second chapter is devoted to the organization of empirical research, motivational sphere, including the detailed description of materials and methods. Empirical research was conducted on the basis on the kindergarten in the practical center of psychological state of children and teenagers and in Russian Rehabilitation Center. All in all, 150 mothers were tested who had children aged from 4 to 7 years old to analyze the results. The methods should have been divided into 2 blocks. Paragraphs 2-4-1 and the discussion of the results were represented with the reference to other authors. Increased level of psychological discomfort, anxiety, apathy, and the presence of new, unique life values, and they became the target of psychocorrection. Chapter 3 is devoted to the development of special psychocorrectional program and the view of the author on the use of metaphorical and association maps, which will help mothers and children with deviation. On the basis of the evaluation of dynamics, which reflects the actual psychological state of the mothers, the efficiency of this program was proved. The reference list includes 189 sources, 55 of them are in English. The appendices show the rules for the participants, the trainings, tasks. The work is logical. It is illustrated by 16 photos. The text of the thesis is translated into English. As for the topic of the thesis, 9 works were published. Some of them are published in peer-reviewed journals. On the whole, the thesis is a completed scientific work. But I would like to hear some comments upon some provisions. The first, paragraph 241, there are a lot of experimental data. The analysis is on the basis of the pictures, which reflects the middle figures. We can't understand which type of statistical analysis was used. Point 3.2, to analyze the changes. The criteria of student was used. Number 3. How can you explain the specifics of the sincerity in mothers who bring up children with autism? And what are the prospects of the development of this dissertational research? I want to highlight that these remarks are of specifying character. The thesis of Andreevich Kukanov on the topic characteristics of value-motivational sphere of the parents of children with various deviations in the development for the degree of the candidate of psychological sciences on specialty 190010 correctional psychology is completed scientific work where empirical data was obtained, and on the basis of these results special correctional program was developed and realized. It is very important for solving the problems in psychotherapy. As for the content of the problems, the volume of the study, the novelty, scientific significance, the thesis of Kukanov conforms with the main requirements of the order number 6821/1, and our candidate Kukanov deserves the degree of the candidate of the psychological sciences on specialty 190010.11 of the order was not violated by the candidate. Andreevich, your answers. Elena Evgenievna, thank you very much. The answer to the first question concerning the method of statistical analysis, non-parametrical criteria of Manoitny was used by us. All mathematical calculations were done with the help of SPS program. The second question, students' criteria. We conducted preliminary work with the use of criteria of Kolmogorov and Smirnov in SPSS program, and all the distributions were normal, and we chose parametrical T criteria student. Number 3, question 3, the choice of the value of sincerity by the mothers who bring up autists. The sincerity was a unique value. It is connected with the fact that for mothers who bring up children with autism, the sincerity is very important. And first of all, they need truth and clear relationships, future prospects, and it allows children to accept new reality. And question 4, concerning the prospects of the further research. Our study is the first stage. And it allows to realize new psychocorrectional and psychotherapeutical programs. This thesis, it is not final stage of the work with parents who have children with deviations. And now we can see the first results Our article was published in a peer-reviewed journal not long ago. It is devoted to the study of the fathers who have children with deviations, and in the near future we will develop the program which will help this category of men. Elena Evgenievna, did you like the answers? Vanya Lukova, please, the floor is yours. Dissertational research of Kukanov is devoted to the study of the mothers, their values, the mothers who have children with deviations. The research is devoted to the problem, and parents from psychological state of the parents, the development, psychological development of the children is depends on. In such situations, family system is characterized by the transparent external burdens, and this study analyzes the existential aspect of the parents, and it allows to develop psychotherapeutical programs which will help parents of such children with deviations. Our candidate developed a psycho-correctional program, and he to achieve this aim, an empirical research was conducted. Kukanov explains the aim and tasks of the research, the choice of the group of patients for the research, and it is reflected in specialized literature. The text of the thesis is logical. It contains 16 pictures and 15 tables, 260 pages, 55 English sources, and reflects the historical development and modern state of the problem. The analysis of the scientific literature can be used for the development of new courses on the program of correctional psychology. The results of the empirical research can be used to inform psychologists for consulting help and scientific novelty. It opens the way for psychological intervention and overcoming of non-productive form of behavior and motivation. As a result of the research, special correctional program was developed, and it increased the practical significance of the thesis. The results of empirical research are very important. They have a great role when individual psychological profile is created. For the first time, empirical data which allows to study existential categories was obtained, and a program aimed at the consulting and correction help was developed. For mothers of the children with the deviation is in the development was developed. and mothers with autist children have more problems. Anxiety, dissatisfaction with life are also observed, and program 7 Eyes is based on metaphorical charts, psychological traumas, stresses, depressive, which allow to work with conflicts. Cognitive therapy of Becker was used in this program. It affects the lifestyle of a person. For example, the study of psychological factors helps to develop a psychotherapeutical program. The tested model of psychocorrectional program. The program has psychotherapeutical character, special psychology and clinical psychology of the family. Critical analysis of medical literature allowed our candidates to deal with actual topic. Methodological apparatus included theoretical analysis of literary sources, psychological methods, and methods of statistical analysis. The selected methods corresponds with the tasks of the research. Qualitative and quantitative analysis was conducted. To conclude, I don't have serious questions. The thesis of Kukanov is a completed scientific work. Empirical data can be qualified as very well planned work on correction psychology. As for the content and scientific novelty, and first of all practical significance, the dissertation of Kukanov conforms with the requirements of the order number 6821/1 on the procedure of awarding scientific degrees at St. Petersburg State University, and Mr. Kukanov deserves the scientific degree on specialty 190010. You don't have any questions? Thank you very much. One more review. Andrej, Igor Anatolievich, your speech. Thank you very much. Can you hear me well? The thesis of Andreevich Kukanov is devoted to the study of the value and motivational of the parents with the children with problematic development, autism, and the delay of psychic development. Over the recent years, there are more and more children with such type of deviations, and it ruins the family because they exist in the psychologically difficult situation, and psychological peculiarities are of high attention. The members of such family are in a troubled situation in terms of psychology, and this situation influences the lifestyle of the family, the structure of the relationships, the value, sphere of values. And the relatives of such children need special psychological assistance. And that's why the thesis is very actual. And in correctional medicinal psychology, the development of psychotherapeutical or correctional programs aimed at the assistance to this category of people is very important. It concerns the actuality of the research. The aim of the research is the comparative analysis of the motivational sphere of the mothers of the children with autism and delay of psychic development. To achieve this goal, the author solves the following problems: the review and analysis of the sources on this topic, the selection and testing of methods necessary for the research, the study of the personality traits of the mothers of the children with deviations, and their values. Comparative analysis of the results, and the development of original program of the psycho-correctional help to mothers with children with deviations. Mr. Kukanov uses a serious methodological basis which allowed to analyze the peculiarities of motivations and emotional sphere, and it helped define the direction of this psycho-correctional program. The truthfulness of these provisions and conclusions are defined by 150 tested people, 3 groups, and the application of various methods and techniques, including a wide spectrum of statistical methods of data processing, psychodiagnostic methods in combinations with statistical processing of empirical material allowed our candidate to achieve the goals. The scientific novelty. For the first time in the domestic psychology, the characteristics of motivation sphere were represented for the first time. Specific characteristics of the system of values of this category of tested people. On the basis of this research, the correctional program was developed, the thesis, and its results supplements the understanding of psychological state of the children, the peculiarities of the change of the wide range of motivation characteristics under the influence of this long-term psycho trouble situation. As for the practical significance of the thesis, it is of high importance, and the realization of the results of this study will help to develop psycho-correctional programs which will help the families with children with deviations. The program 7 Eyes, the structure of group lessons, trainings, the stages of realization of this program. The Appendices shows the detailed parts of the practical section of this program. The results both empirical part and testing can be used in studying process at master's programs, postgraduate programs, training programs for training social workers. The structure of the thesis, it's rather traditional. It consists of the introduction, 3 chapters, conclusions, the literature list, and appendices are represented. The literary sources includes 129 sources, including 55 in English, and the text of the thesis has pictures, tables. The author published 9 works, 4 of them in scientific journals recommended by High Attestation Committee of the Russian Federation. On the whole, the thesis is a completed scientific research work. I don't have serious remarks which can spoil the impression, but I want to ask some questions. First of all, how can your program be implemented? Where can it be used, and which administrative conditions should be observed to implement your methods? Secondly, you showed that the most stressful is the situation for parents with children autists. And the section which is dedicated to the correlation, you speak that the mothers of little autists, they are in constant anxiety. Then you speak that such mothers suffer from apathy, they are very weak, indifferent. You say that they are aimed at the improvement of their children. They are looking for assistance, and the life of such women is devoted to these aims. And one more remark, which is concerned with the first chapter of the study, where you described autism and the delay in psychic development. When you describe clinical picture of autism, there is a phrase about the lack of the necessity in contacts. And if we speak about the lack of necessity in contacts, autists, it is difficult for the child autist to communicate with other people because of its general this leads to the destruction of contacts. Second, when you describe 4 groups of autists according to classification of Olga Sergeyevna Nikolskaya, you speak that on page 17. I don't agree with you here. The deviation of active information processing, the application It is a characteristic of all autists, all type of autists. Number 3, the violation of emotional sphere. And Andrej Andreevich speaks about the first year of life, page 22. But if we speak about personal sphere, is not correct. And when autism is being formed, the number 4 on page 25, the author, there is no voice in the microphone, intellectual lack of he calls them synonym. Intellectual lack of intellect, it is more broad than the delay of psychic development. I would like to highlight that these remarks don't decrease the overall impression from the study, and my impression is positive. And conclusion, as for the content, tasks and volume of the study, as for the novelty, scientific and practical value, the thesis of Andrej Andreevich Kukanov on the topic characteristics of value-motivational sphere of the parents of children at various deviations in the development conforms with the requirements of the Order 6821/1 on the procedure of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg State University. And our candidate, Kukanov Andrej Andreevich, deserves, there is no voice in the microphone, he deserves the degree of the candidate of psychological sciences, specialty 190010, correctional psychology. Andrej Andreevich, the floor is yours. Igor Anatolievich, thank you very much. Question 1. Where the realization of the program is possible, both in educational institutions and in medical institutions, hospitals, rehabilitation centers. And as for metaphorical association, charts, tasks, special room with multimedia should be equipped. And as for medical institutions, the second question, whether mothers, such mothers can become, and we can point out that the internal comfort correlates with negative emotional states. If we consider the results of the methodology of 7 states of the women, 90% of respondents have the low level of positive emotional state, and these results allow us to Are you satisfied with the answer, Igor Anatolievich? Thank you very much. And now my own review, the review of the chairman of the dissertational board. I want to highlight that the eternal world of the mothers is in a new sphere of theoretical and empirical analysis in Russian correctional psychology. And there are a lot of gaps In relation to this, the dissertation of Andreevich Kukanov is very actual. It is very actual both for the solution, not only theoretical but also practical problems of correctional psychology. Нет звука микрофон, no voice in the microphone. The support of the mothers and their families on the whole. The modern correctional psychology needs such developments because the study devoted to the psychology of parents, they are of fragmentary character, no voice in the microphone, and the deficit of the information, the global systematic coverage of the psychology of the family, or even only the psychology of mothers. And the attempt of Kukanov should be supported to the problem of psychological diagnostics and emotional sphere of the mothers with early autism and delay of psychic development, and such synthesis is a rare event in the studies of correctional psychology. Nevertheless, as this study shows, such synthesis is highly prospective because it proves not only practical but also theoretical results. The study of Kukanov explains not only on the basis of systematization of orientations, motivations, and personality peculiarities. In most cases, family situation in such study is evaluated as a stressful, and the condition of mothers needs special intervention. And the research of Kukanov's concerns emotional value sphere of mothers of such children, and also the development of correctional program for the mothers. The novelty of the research is a problematic field of these problems. The original part of the research, the correlation of value orientations of the mothers who bring up children with various deviations, and it allows mothers to take part in different situations. The level of discomfort with early children autism and positive changes of emotional sphere of the mothers after they took part in this correctional program. The results provides methodological I want to highlight that the methodological complex corresponds with the tasks of the research. The number of tested mothers was 150 people, and logical stages of psychocorrectional program. And the scientific value is to prove personal, no voice in the microphone, early children autism, and the delay of psychic development. These mothers are joined by increased psychological discomfort, anxiety, apathy, the appearance of new life values, no voice in the microphone, and The vulnerability is a characteristic of such mothers' depressions, aggression, anxiety, and so on. This is connected with the birth of a child with deviations. And it leads to difficulties in parent-children relations and relations between husband and wives. And the correction program 7 Eyes was developed by our candidate, and it is very important program which helps such mothers overcome difficulties. And on theoretical basis, the detailed descriptions of the parts of this program makes it a real tool for the support of the mothers who are in a difficult situations. The practical development of the program is increasing in connection to its efficiency, and the results can be used in training, group and individual consulting. The overall evaluation of the study. There are some remarks concerning the thesis, and in his further research he will correct mistakes. The first, the thesis is called Characteristics of Value-Motivational Sphere of the Parents of Children with Various Deviations in the Development. The hypothesis and subject of the research, they are defined also as the value-motivational sphere of personality, but you are aimed at the peculiarity of the value sphere of the mothers. The third provision is due to existentiality, the change of internal conflicts and the values of the personality reflects the process of transformation of all emotional sphere of the mothers. The motivation is uncovered, explained, while value portrait of mothers are being described, and psychological structure is different from another one because mothers should interact with their children in a special way. And which concept did you use when you combined two different psychic phenomena, motivations and values, when you combine them into value-motivational sphere? As for the first provision for the defense, the parents accepted their children with deviations and the stages of loss. Which empirical results of your research and methodological tools the author can prove the stages of exception of such child? Number 3. Thanks to the various material, the psychological portrait was outlined of the mothers of such child, and mothers' values were very well studied in the dissertations, but a child is out of the subject of analysis. And the value attitude of the parents towards their child should be taken into account. And what is the role of the child in this structure? And you used opinion poll, and you should have used projection methods which would give the implicit picture of mother's value or even hidden motivation of their interaction with children. And there is a question, no voice in the microphone, unfortunately, the interpretation. Such a delicate sphere as values and parent-children relations. As for the theoretical significance of the research, the author focuses on the original direction of clinical psychology. No voice in the microphone. We support him, but the theoretical aim of the work is introduced in one general phrase. There is a question, what theoretical significance does your research have? Number 6, as for the remarks of the methodological aspects of the dissertation, methods and methodology of the research. You describe only methodology and you don't explain methods. Methodological distortion. The author describes the results separately according to each methodology. Statistical data correlation analysis is represented according to the results of separate methods. Such approach to the description of the results is possible by high analytical part impedes the personal determinants, but these remarks don't decrease overall positive impression from the study, and the dissertation of Mr. Kukanov can be considered completed scientific research work which solves an important scientific problem. The structure of the dissertation conforms with the requirements. It consists of introduction, 3 chapters, and conclusion. The literature list includes 189 sources, among which there are 55 books in English and 9 publications. 4 of them are recommended by a high attestation committee. Conclusion: the dissertation of Kukanov, Andreevich on the topic the characteristics of value-motivational sphere of the parents of children with various deviations in the development is a completed work, and it solves the important scientific task. The thesis conforms with the main requirements by the order on the procedure of awarding degrees at St. Petersburg State University, and candidate Kukanov Andrei Andreevich deserves the degree of the candidate of psychological sciences on specialty 190010.11 of the order was not violated by the candidate. And your answers. Question 1. Motivational and emotional sphere. It is the concept in academic psychology. Value-motivational sphere plays the role. It provides the sustainability, the behavior of the personality in different life spheres. There are many foreign and Russian concepts, doctrines, which combine these phenomena. The theory of Schwartz, where values are represented as usual needs. The theory of Marx, the concept of Frankl, within the frames of which the concept of Leontiev, it described individual values as a result of the process of interiorization of social values. The theory of Ilyin's theory of motivation, for example. Apart from these concepts, the notion of value and emotions is explained in many other researches. A question to which empirical results of the research can be proved. There are 5 stages of a child, of perception of the child, and each stage has the emotion, and one of the methods which was used by us, it was a clinical conversation. We interviewed every participant, and every mother had the opportunity to say how she felt, and we could understand which stage it was. Some of them, they were at the stage of the deal. They talked about, they spoke about the consultation with different specialists, and also those mothers who passed these stages were in empirical respect. Specific results can be shown. Analyzing individual results, for example, according to the methods of experimental and personal blocks, we could see that mothers who accepted its child, they are very calm, and those mothers who are in depressions, they had a low level of internal comfort. Question 3. Which role in this system of mother's value the child play? The work of famous researcher, Russian researcher Valentina Tkacheva. In many world cultures, a child is the most important thing. Families with the children with deviations and the values are shifted. Cultural and family traditions also influence the situation in the family, and if parents accept the deviations, it is easier for them to help such a child. They appreciate him, they love this child. If parents are not ready to accept such a child, they hide the presence of the child in such a family. Question 4. How could we minimize motivational distortion? And it is the conditions of this empirical research. One medical institution and one educational institution, and individual interview was arranged. One test was offered, and 2 or 3 weeks were given to these women. And those mothers who agreed to take part in this research could consult with us, and we could explain them some aspects of this test. In the course of the interview, women gave their ideas about these methods, about their difficulties, why they chose these or that values, for example. And at the end of these 2 or 3 weeks, the results of testing were analyzed. And the question about theoretical significance of the research. Our research has several theoretical meanings. It supplements the influence and how correctional psychology influences the value of the mothers. Thank you very much. And as we don't have anyone in the hall, we are going to have the speech of scientific supervisor. The research of the characteristics of value-motivational sphere of the parents of children with various deviations in the development is very actual and considerable when more and more families with children with deviation are being registered. The peculiarity of this study is the research of the fact of such families, and the family should be viewed as a system, and personality of mothers are being changed. The development and successful realization of psycho-correctional program aimed at the consultational help of the mothers of such children. Kukanov demonstrated artistic approach to this study, in-depth analysis, correctness of their interpretation. He used non-formal approach to the research. It is a very considerable work and interesting in terms of understanding the mechanism of influence on the psychological state of the mothers. We accept this review, and the next step of our meeting, according to the agenda, your concluding work, your impression, your overall impression, and then we will discuss. I want to express my gratitude to St. Petersburg State University for the opportunity given to me to defend the thesis within the walls of this wonderful university. Thank you very much. And now, a 5-minute break, discussion by members of the Council of the issues of awarding a scientific degree. I ask you to turn off the sound during the broadcast of the meeting. Guests and colleagues who are non-board members, I ask you to leave the hall, and I will invite you when our consultation meeting is over.
Пожалуйста, Андрей Andreevich. И я хочу высказать решение о присуждении ученый.
The meeting continues. I ask you to switch on the sound of the meeting's broadcast. To make sure that it is working, the conclusive minutes of the Dissertation Council's meeting are coming. I raise the question of awarding an academic degree to an open roll call. I remind you that the decision of the Dissertation Council on the issue of the awarding the degree is considered positive is more than half of it voted for, but not less than 3 members of the Dissertational Council who participated in the meeting, in accordance with paragraph 23 of the procedure for awarding academic degrees in St. Petersburg State University. Member of the board, Zashirinskaya. It is positive. I am for. Board member, Malkova Elena Evgenievna, your opinion? I'm for. Board member Matanova Koleva Vanya Lukova. I'm for. Board member Kostin Igor Anatolievich, your opinion? I'm for. And Chairman Posakhova Svetlana Vladimirovna, I'm for. Distinguished colleagues, I declare that out of 5 members of the Council participating in the meeting of the Dissertation Council voted for, 5 people. There are no voted against and no abstained people. And decision on awarding the academic degree of the candidate on psychological sciences on specialty 190010 correctional psychology is accepted. And your concluding word. Distinguished members of the Dissertation Board, thank you very much for the opportunity given to me to defend my thesis in the university at St. Petersburg State University. I also would like to thank my scientific supervisor for the support, for the help during the whole process of studying at the university and at the course of postgraduate studies. I also would like to thank the doctors and colleagues who helped me to collect all the necessary information, conduct empirical research, and also I would like to thank the mothers who agreed to take part in my study. Thank you very much. The meeting is declared closed. Thank you all for participation. Please switch off the live broadcast of the meeting.